It all began on a bright morning in a luxurious hotel where the staff rushed about, preparing for the arrival of one of the most powerful businessmen. Whispers filled the grand lobby as word spread that a Japanese billionaire was coming to finalize an important deal. Every detail was perfect: the polished floors, the fresh flowers, the carefully arranged tables. But there was one thing no one had prepared for: the language barrier. The moment the billionaire stepped inside, his presence carried weight. Tall, stern, and dressed in an immaculate suit, his sharp eyes scanned the room with impatience. He spoke quickly in Japanese, his voice firm, his tone filled with authority. But to the horror of the managers and employees, not a single person understood a word. The room fell into an awkward silence. Nervous glances were exchanged as translators were frantically searched for, but none were around. The billionaire's irritation grew with each passing second. His gestures became sharper, his voice louder, frustration clearly taking over. Employees bowed politely, trying to hide their fear, but their helplessness only seemed to make him angrier. It was a moment where the entire deal, the reputation of the hotel, and the future of the staff seemed to hang in the balance. Then, from the corner of the room, someone unexpected stepped forward. A young maid, dressed in her simple uniform, had been quietly watching the chaos. No one had noticed her presence, and no one expected her to say a word. But as the billionaire's temper reached his peak, she calmly opened her mouth and spoke in flawless Japanese. The entire room froze. Every eye turned toward her, disbelief etched on their faces. Her voice was steady, respectful, and clear, answering the billionaire in his own language as though she had been born to speak it. The man's expression shifted instantly, his anger pausing in midair as he slowly looked at the maid who dared to speak when no one else could. What she said in that moment not only stunned the billionaire, but also changed the course of the entire encounter. But the question is, how did a maid, invisible to everyone until now, know perfect Japanese? And what would happen next? The staff could hardly believe what they were hearing. The billionaire, who only moments ago had been fuming with impatience, now stood silent, his sharp eyes fixed on the maid. He seemed almost stunned, as if trying to make sense of what had just happened. The room, filled with tension a heartbeat ago, shifted into a heavy stillness where no one dared to move. Managers glanced at each other, confused and embarrassed. How could it be that the people hired to impress such an important guest had failed, yet the quiet maid had succeeded? The young woman kept her gaze lowered, her hands folded neatly in front of her, but her words carried strength. She spoke with confidence of someone who understood not only the language, but also the cultural respect woven into it. The billionaire's face softened, but his eyes narrowed slightly, studying her with deep curiosity. To him, it was not just surprising, it was intriguing. Who was she, and how had she learned to speak Japanese so fluently? Whispers spread through the staff. Some remembered seeing her cleaning hallways or arranging flowers, always working quietly in the background. No one ever asked much about her, and she never spoke more than a few words in English. And yet here she was, holding the attention of a man whose presence had left everyone else trembling. The manager, red with embarrassment, tried to step in, but the billionaire lifted his hand, signaling him to remain silent. He wanted to hear only from the maid. The weight of that gesture was unmistakable. A billionaire, known for his strict standards and sharp temper, now gave his full attention to someone considered the lowest in rank within the hotel. The staff could sense something unusual forming. This was no ordinary moment, and the maid's hidden ability was only the beginning of a story none of them could have predicted. But what was her secret, and why had she kept it hidden until now? The maid's calm reply still echoed in the grand lobby, and though she had spoken only a few sentences, it was enough to shift the balance of power in the room. The billionaire leaned slightly forward, his sharp eyes fixed on her, as if trying to uncover the truth behind this unexpected revelation. He had arrived ready to walk out in anger, yet now his curiosity held him in place. The staff, on the other hand, stood frozen, torn between relief that the storm had paused and fear of what might come next. No one really knew much about the young maid. She was polite, hardworking, and always early for her shifts. Some of her coworkers noticed she carried herself with unusual discipline, but they never questioned it. She blended into the background so easily that most people barely remembered her face at the end of the day. And yet here she was, holding the attention of a man whose presence had left everyone else trembling. The manager's pride stung, but he dared not interrupt. This unexpected twist made him feel small, as though all his years of experience meant nothing in front of the maid's hidden talent. The billionaire, still watching closely, asked her another question in Japanese, this time slower and heavier with meaning. His tone was no longer angry, but there was a sharp edge of testing in it. He wanted to know if her skill was real or just a coincidence. Without hesitation, she answered again, her voice even steadier than before. The words rolled off her tongue effortlessly, filled with respect, yet holding quiet authority. The staff exchanged stunned glances. Each reply from her only deepened the mystery. Why had she hidden such knowledge? And more importantly, what connection did she have to the world the billionaire came from? The billionaire's sharp gaze never wavered as he continued speaking to the maid, his words growing longer, layered with subtle tests and hidden meanings. Each time she responded smoothly, her tone calm, her Japanese flawless. The staff stood on edge, hardly daring to breathe, as if any sound might shatter the fragile balance holding the room together. The once furious guest now seemed less angry and more intrigued. It was as though the maid had shifted from being invisible to becoming the most important person in the room. Still, there was tension in the air, heavy and unspoken. The managers exchanged nervous looks, their carefully built authority slipping through their fingers. Every word from the maid only pulled the billionaire's attention further away from them. And while the staff felt a flicker of relief that the crisis was being handled, they couldn't help but wonder if this strange turn of events might cause an even bigger storm. The billionaire folded his arms, his expression unreadable, then asked her something that made the entire room hold its breath. His tone was softer now, but there was a weight in his question, as if he wanted to know not only about her language, but about her. Why had a maid, dressed in plain uniform, hidden such rare ability? The maid hesitated for the first time. Her eyes dropped for a moment, and in that pause, the silence grew almost unbearable, as if the entire hotel waited for her answer, and in that waiting, the tension tightened like a rope pulled too far. Then, slowly, she lifted her head and replied. Her words were respectful, but carried something deeper, something that made the billionaire's eyes widen slightly. In that instant, everyone realized this was no ordinary maid, and whatever truth was about to surface could change everything. The billionaire's eyes narrowed as he listened, and for the first time, a faint spark of recognition crossed his face. It wasn't just her perfect Japanese that caught him off guard. It was what she said. Her words hinted at knowledge only someone familiar with Japanese business traditions would understand. The staff exchanged uneasy glances, realizing she wasn't just answering politely, she was speaking on a level that demanded respect. Then came the unexpected twist. The billionaire asked her a question in a low, deliberate voice, one that carried the weight of both curiosity and challenge. The staff couldn't understand the words, but they could feel the shift in the room instantly. The maid froze, her eyes flickering as if the question had struck something personal. For a moment, it seemed she might stay silent, but then she replied with steady composure, except this time, her words caused the billionaire to suddenly stiffen up. His expression darkened, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous, suspicion. Whispers rippled through the staff. What could she have said to make him react like that? The managers leaned closer, desperate